Hello, I'm sure people will come on. We have 20 people are signed up, so let's get started. Thank you, everybody who's on our session right now. I'm Tahina Day O'Connor from the Pagny Health and Research Foundation. Welcome to our grand round today, Staying in Balance. Thanks for all of you who are returning from yesterday's wonderful session. I'm happy to introduce our speakers and tell you a little bit about how to get your CMEs if that's what you need for this session. Next slide, please. So this program is being brought to you by the New York Medical College, and we would really appreciate if you all could sign in. There are many sign-in methods. You can text a code to 828-295-1144 or visit eeds.com and put in the password 10LAYS, 10 LAYS, LAYS. Lisa First and Christina Harris have no relevant financial relationships to report in the last 12 months with a commercial interest. This activity is not commercially supported. So please, I would love for everybody to sign in. That's how we know that you've been here and you will also be getting an evaluation. This is also the way you will get your CMEs. You must sign in within 24 hours, so you have until tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. to sign in. So thanks, everybody. I'm so pleased to bring the second of a series we're doing with Vibrant Emotional Health, which is formerly the Mental Health Association of New York City, whose groundbreaking solutions have delivered high quality services and support for New York for the last 50 years through state-of-the-art technology and community wellness programs, advocacy, and education work. They are building a society in which emotional wellness can be a reality for everyone and not a stigma, and everybody can reach out. And they have not only a statewide reach, but a national reach through their National Suicide Hotline. I'm happy to introduce both speakers. Christina Harris. She is the Director of Training in the Center for Policy Advocacy and Education at Vibrant, and she oversees training and technical assistance that provide capacity building services to human service professionals throughout New York City. Christina has been a public school educator, social worker, trainer, and coach for helping professionals throughout NYC for the last couple of decades. Christina provides training that focuses on reflective practice and stress management skills for staff, identification support for the mental and behavioral health of youth, and implementation of trauma-informed approaches. So Christina holds a master's degree of social work from NYU and is a mental health first aid instructor and is a certified holistic health coach. Our second presenter is Lisa First. And if you were on yesterday's program, you were introduced to Lisa. She's the director of the Geriatric Mental Health Alliance of New York, and she has nearly 15 years of experience providing public education, training, and technical assistance on mental health. In her role, she regularly provides training on psychological first aid, trauma-informed practices, and self-care and self-management. And she holds a Master of Social Work from Hunter and a Master of Public Health from CUNY School of Public Health. So welcome, ladies. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tahina. Welcome, everyone. I'm Christina Harris. I usually don't have this sort of telemarketing gear on, but this morning we've decided to start some renovations where I live, so you might hear some disruption in the background. If it gets too much, I will mute myself and turn it over to Lisa. But thank you all for showing up. I know that everybody's incredibly busy, and self-care may be one of the last things on people's minds, but it's one of the first things that is going to foundationally keep us all sustainable in our practices, right? So we're really happy that you're here, and we are welcoming you. I love quotes that are meaningful, so I'm going to be sharing some quotes throughout the session. I really like this one, that peace, it doesn't mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of all of those things and still be calm in your heart. Easier said than done, right? So today we're hoping to help you find some peace, even if only in these moments together. And we hope that you will leave here feeling fortified with some strategies and some skills. Again, to be clear too, this is not rocket science. We're not going to share things that are going to blow your mind like you've never heard before. This is really discussion and reflection and strategy sharing. So we're hoping that you all will share with us and with your colleagues what's really working for you. So I'm going to stop the share for a moment and pull up another, a quick exercise. So it's a quick grounding exercise. It is activating the 5 senses. Now you'll have to forgive me. I've got a lot of things here. There we go. A lot of things here that I'm working with. So I'm going to put it on the screen, and I invite you to join along in this just to try it out. This is really the activating your 5 senses exercise. It doesn't take a long time. But as it says, this 5-step exercise can be really helpful during times of panic or anxiety to help to ground you into the present moment. When your mind is bouncing back and forth between a lot of things and you're having anxious thoughts, which has been an issue for me over the past 5 months, and maybe some of you have experienced that too. So I'm just going to invite you to take 2 minutes or so with me to ground into this moment, so that we can all be really present before we move forward. Does that work for everyone? Okay. So just get nice and comfortable. Sit in your seat so you can feel your body against the seat, or if you're laying in a bed, that's fine too. And start paying attention to your breathing. So take a nice, slow, deep breath in through your nose and let it go. One more time, in through your nose and let it go. And this is activating our 5 senses. So the first thing we're going to do is acknowledge 5 things that you can see around you. That could be anything. It can be a pen, a spot on the ceiling, a light, your computer screen. Ideally, it's something away from your computer screen. But I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to, in your mind, look around and spot 5 things that you can see. Okay? And now we're going to go to 4. So we're acknowledging 4 things that you can touch around you. Could be your hair, a pillow, the ground under your feet, the chair that you're sitting in, a pen, anything that's around you. And feel free to pick it up, just touch it. So that's 4. Now we're bringing it down to 3. Acknowledge 3 things that you can hear right now. Any external sound. This says here, if you can hear your belly rumbling, that counts. Try to focus on things that you can hear outside of your body, though. I hear an air conditioner. I hear drilling happening. And what else do I hear? The hearing one's a little tougher. I think that's why they make it 3. Now we're going to bring it down to 2. Acknowledge 2 things that you can smell. This may be a little tough. I have sort of a dog sense of smell, so I can smell a lot of things. But maybe you're in your office, you can smell a pencil. Maybe the air conditioner has a certain scent to it. I happen to have essential oils going in my office because I have a very strong sense of smell. Whatever it is, take a deep breath, see what you can identify. And the last thing to acknowledge is 1 thing you can taste. Maybe you're eating lunch right now, so that makes this one easy. If not, there may be coffee. I definitely have a little coffee taste left in my mouth. I'm going to brush my teeth right after this session. And the idea of this exercise, oh, I can hear someone is off of mute. If everyone could mute, that would be greatly appreciated. There will be moments where we'll ask folks to provide feedback, and then you can unmute yourself. Thank you. So the idea of that exercise of activating your five senses is really to ground you in the present moment. It's this idea of mindfulness, right? And we've all heard of mindfulness. Some of you may be mindfulness practitioners, but mindfulness is simply being present with what is and not trying to change it in the moment. And so we're hoping that we can bring everyone to the present here and help you to find those moments of peace, even in the midst of chaos. So before we move forward, we would love to do some introductions. So I am sharing my screen here. So when I open up the chat box, I can see all the chat, but Lisa has the chat box going and she can share with us your introductions. So if you would please share your name in the chat box, your role, what do you do? What is your, whether it's your job title, maybe you'd like to identify as a parent right now. Maybe you'd like to identify as a mother or a father or a grandmother. Whatever comes to mind for you first as your role. So your name, your role, and please share one thing that gives you joy right now. And you can do that via the chat box. You could also do that by unmuting yourselves and sharing out. We welcome you and would love to hear your voices in the space. So who are you and what brings you joy?
So Tuhina has started us off. She is, of course, the executive director of the foundation, and she finds joy in singing.
Nice.
Who's next? Evelyn, do you want to go? Oh, Allison. She's an executive coach working with several leaders. I find joy connecting with people and helping them find the best in themselves.
Wonderful. Welcome, Allison.
And oh, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Xiomara Rivera, and I'm the administrator of assistant for the foundation. And I find joy in dancing and also problem solving. I know. I really do.
That's great.
Evelyn had shared her credentials of RDH. And Evelyn, is there anything that gives you joy that you'd want to note in the chat box, as well as your name and title?
Can you hear me?
Indu has joined us, and he's an attending physician in radiology at Jacobi, and he too loves singing. Fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. And I also want to say that this session is really, this is for you. So participate in the way that feels most comfortable to you. We certainly love to see you and hear from you. As we go through, we're going to have a lot of opportunities to discuss and share. So thank you to those that shared. If you're not quite warmed up and ready to share yet, that's okay too, but we hope that you'll join in as we move forward. So we are in an interesting time, right? Some mental states that you may be experiencing today. I just saw this graphic and it made me laugh a little bit. Although it's not totally funny, it's very true, right? So we may be feeling a little bit confused, some anxiety. We may really feel a sense of gratitude for what we have currently. Might be exhausted. You may be this woman over here on the side who is losing her last shred of sanity. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to do a poll, and it's asking you just how are you feeling today, right now, what's going on for you? So let's see if we can get that poll. Lisa, do you have the...
Yep, and
there we go. Thank you. So the question is, how are you feeling right now? And it's multiple choice. You don't have to choose just one. But the options are happy, drained and exhausted, gratitude or grateful, angry, confusion, excited, irritated, hopeful, overwhelmed, or maybe even losing your last shred of sanity. So go ahead and vote.
I definitely see people voting.
Great.
Got
This
about
just
70%.
Thank you, Lisa.
So we'll give it 15 seconds and then we'll close out.
All right. Thanks to those who have shared how you're feeling. This is anonymous too, so we're not matching anyone to what they're feeling. Wonderful. So Lisa has shared the poll results here, and the highest percentages, the highest two percentages are hopeful, 67%, and gratitude or grateful at 56%. That's wonderful. So knowing that that's a big part of what folks are feeling, mixed in with being overwhelmed and excited and drained. So 33% of you are feeling drained or exhausted. It's interesting because in this time, we may be feeling more feelings than we've ever felt all at the same time, right? And it's okay to hold all of those together. We can feel hopeful and also be feeling overwhelmed. And I know I'm not saying anything that anyone doesn't already know, but it can be an emotional roller coaster. And the reason why we're starting here is because, you know, taking a really clear stock of authentically where you are and what you're feeling is that first step to managing your own self-care and making sure you're taking care of yourself and taking the steps you need to take for you. So thank you, everybody, for participating. We cannot have the same expectations of ourselves as we would in a normal week because these are not normal weeks. We've got to be patient with ourselves. Again, sometimes easier said than done. But knowing where we are and how we're feeling is crucial. And knowing that it's okay. I mean, I know this is very cliche, but it's okay not to be okay all of the time. And figuring out when we're feeling that. So where do I go with that? What do I do with it? Instead of just pushing through and being as productive as I've always been, what adjustments might I need to make in my life to make this work for me to sustain my practice? So we are hoping that by the end of today, we've met these objectives with you. So we're going to take some time to identify stressors in your personal and professional lives, understand the body's stress response, what's going on physiologically when we're overwhelmingly stressed, and then finding individualized methods for turning off that alarm that starts in your brain. We're going to understand the effects of stress and productivity and morale in the workplace. And ideally, you're going to leave with some strategies and skills for stress reduction and burnout prevention. We will provide you with, I know that in advance of this session, you were sent a self-care assessment and an action plan. The expectation was not that you would complete it in its entirety, but we are going to take a look at it today and see which areas of the assessment feel most resonant for you right now. Like, what's the area you want to move forward and take some action steps in? And by the time you leave today, our hope is that you've got at least one commitment that you're making to yourself to increase or enhance your own self-care practices. So along those lines, Vibrant has created a Staying in Balance toolkit, and it is a wonderful resource. Let me actually find it online here. I had it up on my screen before. Okay, maybe I'm not able to find it, but you have the...
I can find it, and I'll put the link up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is the link here, right here, and you can download it. It's completely free, and it is wonderful. It is a supplement to these training sessions that we do, but holds so much more information. Lots of great stuff for you individually. Also looking at, if we're talking about organizational or staff culture, if we're talking about vicarious trauma and how do we manage that and have conversations about that with folks. So there are lots of great things in there. And we can actually send the electronic version to you via email after this session as well. All right. So let's get started just with where are you currently with taking care of yourself? And we were going to break you into small groups, but we have a small number of people here. So we'd love to do this if you are able to and feel comfortable with sharing your video. We'd love to see your faces. If not, that's okay. But you can unmute yourself to join this conversation. So the conversation is around, let's just start with what's one thing you're doing to take care of yourself today? And you can share it in the chat box as well. Trying to move my video panel around here so it's not in the way of my screen. There we go.
One thing everybody's doing is they're tuning into this workshop. So if you're here, you're actually actively taking care of yourself by doing that, among other things.
Very true.
Well, I can jump in. I started the day with some exercise. I went for a walk before it got too hot, hopped on the exercise bike, and did a little bit of yoga and meditation.
Wow, I am inspired, Allison. Thank you for sharing that.
Doing all this resting.
Thank you so much.
Someone in the chat box, Evelyn, noted that she took the day off.
Yes, good. And you're with us on your day off. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you so much. Anybody else? What else are folks doing?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, super. Okay, I was not sure. So this is Indy Dudamani. I'm one of the attendings here. So generally, I do not do anything, but I do not generally get overwhelmed or stressed. I guess that's my personality. I'm not sure. But people do ask if I do any kind of yoga or meditation. So I feel that in life, it's really not worth getting stressed out. But at times, yes, like, before exams or something, we all go through certain kind of a pressure where you have to do a lot of things. But yeah, today itself, I do not, on daily basis, I do not do much. And I joined this conference to see what generally people talk about. And also I have a daughter who is currently going into sophomore to Berkeley. And she is anxiety and depression person. And my husband generally is anxious and he is physician. So I wanted to see what I can get out of this. Although, so many times we read a lot of things. And sometimes it's repetition, but sometimes, people kind of reiterate and say things differently. So I thought of joining as I keep seeing these emails about these things. So I'm sorry I gave you a long, details, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. And that's why I'm here to see. As I review my cases, I'm listening to you all, and it's wonderful to see. And also, I feel bad that, good number of times, not many people really join or take advantage of these sessions for various reasons. So I thought, let me join and see.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
It's really very powerful that you are, you're here to hear for yourself, but also for caring for other people that you love. Knowing that they may be struggling and you may be able to get some strategies to support them is wonderful. So thank you. Anybody else want to share? Those are some really wonderful things. And I think that the power of sharing some of the strategies that you're using is, I'm inspired by everyone who just spoke. And so sharing those things with colleagues can really give people ideas and also just inspire a little spark of, oh, I could be, maybe I could do a walk in the morning. I've started Drinking more water sounds very simple, but I'm just being really intentional about as soon as this is done, I go back and I fill it up again. So again, not rocket science, but it's something I'm just reminding myself to do regularly. So what is stress? Many of us think of stress as being, you know, all of these things coming at us at once. And that's true, that can cause stress. But those things that are coming at us externally that we cannot necessarily control are the stressors, right? Those are the things that are acting upon us. The good news about the definition of stress is it is the way that we react emotionally, mentally, and physically to situations that we find difficult, threatening, or unmanageable. So, I mean, you can take that as either good news or bad news, right? It does imply that there is some choice in how we respond, which means that we have to first make it a conscious thing, right? If all of these things are acting upon us, if we're not conscious and we're just reacting without thinking about it at all, then doesn't feel like it's within our control. Anybody know somebody like this person on the left of your screen who's got the coffee and is always just like, just not right now, I'm just so stressed out, just come back in like 3 hours and then maybe we could talk then, I just can't do it right now. You know that person? Maybe some of us are that person. No judgment, it's okay. And then to the right side here, we've got someone else who's like, I'm going to get up at 5:30 every morning. I'm going to run, and then I'm going to do my documentation, my paperwork, and then I'm going to go into work. I'm going to take care of everybody else. I'm going to come home. I'm going to take care of, you know, my friends and my family, and then I'm going to go to bed and get up the next morning and do it all over again because that's what I do. I'm a superhero. Know anybody like that? Yeah? I have known folks like that. I have been that person in my life. What's going to happen on either end of this spectrum here to these folks if this is their response or their reaction to stressors?
You're going to blow up.
It is not sustainable. It's going to lead to burnout, exhaustion, and it's not only the emotional toll or the mental health toll, which we are going to talk about, but it's also physically. Our bodies cannot withstand that burden of overwhelming stress on a daily basis for too long until we start to feel the physical effects, right? We start to have much more inflammation in our bodies that is aggravated by stress. We start to see our blood pressure is going up. Maybe we're having ulcers, digestive problems. All of these things have been linked back to stress. Not saying that there's not a medical issue there, but stress certainly can exacerbate those issues. So having said that, we're going to do a little activity. Now, I'm going to try not to stress you out too much, but it's going to feel a little bit like you're back in school for a couple of minutes here. So the instructions are this. You're going to have 2 minutes. I'm going to set a timer on my phone. So we do 2 minutes exactly. You're going to either open up a Word document on your computer, or you can use good old-fashioned pen and paper, notes section on your phone, whatever you've got, but it needs to be written or typed. You're going to put your name at the top of the page with the date, a topic sentence about your ideal state of wellness, 3 sentences about how you're going to accomplish this ideal state of wellness over the next 3 months. Write 2 sentences about any barriers you foresee getting in the way of your brilliant plan, and then a concluding sentence that sums it all up. So I'm going to give you exactly 2 minutes, starting now. Okay, you have 1 minute remaining. Okay, keep writing, keep typing, keep writing, keep typing. You have 40 seconds left. And 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and fingers down. Okay. So if you participated in that, which I hope you did, we have a poll for you. We want to hear from you. How was that activity? What was your experience? So what were you thinking and feeling 1 minute into this activity? And the options are, I've got this, I'm feeling confident and content. Option 2 is there's just not enough time, I feel flustered and pressured. Option number 3, and be honest, this is anonymous, we can't see who's saying what. Option number 3 is I'm checking my email, I feel uncomfortable and this is futile. Number 4, I didn't register to be stressed, I feel angry right now. Number 5 is, oh bleep, I give up, I'm going to get a snack. And the last one is, I've written so many papers on deadline, I'm cool and calm. And if there was something other that you were experiencing, that's okay too. You can type it into the chat box.
We'll give it a few more seconds.
Oh, I'm so interested to see. I can't see what everyone is doing until Lisa shares the results. So I'm interested to see what everyone's experience was of this.
58% have voted. I'm going to give it just a few more seconds, and I have ended the poll. And here are the results.
Oh, we've got some confident folks in here. That's great. So people are feeling confident and content, 57% of you. We did have some folks, though, who said there's really not enough time, feeling flustered and pressured. Oh, bleep, a couple people gave up and went and got a snack. That's okay, too. And other people are feeling calm and cool and collected about this. And then we had some folks who said other. So thank you for participating in this, for doing the exercise, for participating in the poll. This is really an opportunity to induce a little bit of, maybe a little bit of stress or anxiety in a low stakes kind of way, right? We weren't going to kick you out if you didn't finish this exercise. But this is an opportunity to reflect on when you're feeling like there are a lot of things to do and you're trying to get things done on a deadline. How do you typically respond? What is your default response to feeling pressure and feeling stressed? And it looks like many of you might be really used to this. And so you're feeling like, I got this, and that's great. So thank you for participating in that exercise. Just a visual here. So if that did create any stress or anxiety in you, number 1, I'm sorry, wasn't intentional. You can take a deep breath, look at this screen, and let some of that stress go.
So Christina was saying earlier that stress is our reaction to things that are stressors. And if we think about our environment, and for a lot of us, a big part of our environment is our work. And certainly for folks in healthcare, work is a huge part of your environment. And if you look at this diagram, we can see that there are multiple sources of stress for folks in a healthcare setting, demands of all kinds, not just patient demands, but including them. Whether or not we feel like we have control over aspects of our work, how much support we feel like we're getting or not, what the quality of our workspace or workplace relationships are. How well do we get along with our colleagues, those who we report to and those who report to us? What is our role? There may be stressors related to that. You know, I know certainly in the corporate workspace, a lot of middle managers might say, oh, you know, it's hard because I've got stress from the bottom and stress from the top. I think a lot of people feel that way regardless of role. And change. I think those of us who work at all have experienced a lot of change in the last number of months, and certainly in the healthcare sector, there has been tremendous change and challenge related to that with the advent of COVID and everything that everyone has had to do to manage that. So, you know, this shows the complexity of the stressors and how they interlock to create sources of stress that you may be reacting to. We can go forward, next slide. So when we think about stressors and stress, we often think about the stress response. And we can skip this slide. Yep, I want to get to the bear. So we all know this. Everyone here likely has heard or certainly knows about the fight, flight, or freeze response. This is something that human beings have been hardwired. We evolved to have this stress response. And the reason that it happened is that it helps us to save our own lives when we're in danger. So nobody should come away thinking that, oh, you know, the goal of stress management is to eliminate the stress response. Not at all. That's not even possible. But it's really to understand our own unique responses to stress, because in understanding that, we have an opportunity then to take steps to buffer that for ourselves. And we do have a short video clip that we want to show that will illustrate this.
Watch this. One little piece of paper can have a remarkable effect. Stress is stressful. But if you understand a bit about what it is, you'll be better able to deal with it. First though, take a few deep breaths. In fact, do that anytime you feel stressed. It helps. Stress is a survival mechanism. When danger appears, it can get you out of trouble quickly. Your body crashes up the gears and throws all its resources into getting you moving. Your heart pumps furiously to increase blood pressure, glucose is sent to the muscles as a fuel injection, and you become totally focused on what psychologists call fight or flight. Thing is, this emergency state is only meant to last just long enough to get you out of danger. But here in the 21st century, we stress about different things, and for much, much longer. Your brain and body stay on red alert, and you'll be less able to think clearly, learn, or remember things. Take a few more deep breaths, because as you now know, stress is a physical reaction, and deep breathing helps to counteract its effects. So, what else can you do? Okay, top tips to reduce stress. First, get plenty of exercise. Let out all that locked up energy. Now, back to the problem. Get in control. Scope out the situation and how you're going to tackle it. Don't stress alone. Talk to someone. Socialize. And have a laugh. You can't laugh and quake with fear at the same time. Get down with nature on a big or small scale. And if your mind won't stop worrying, it's something else to do instead.
Thanks, Christina. So that probably encapsulated much of what you already know about the stress response, but it's a helpful primer. And what it tells us is it's normal and natural to feel stress in the modern world, using that old evolutionary mechanism that we have that originating in our brain, but we need to find ways to mitigate it so that we can move forward in the way that we like. And now we're going to take a pause for a breathing break.
So a great time to relax is when you just don't have time for it, right? And we all naturally breathe. Our bodies are amazing machines, which is wonderful. But breath is also one of the best ways to calm our nervous systems. So in the interest of time, I am going to share with you after, and maybe I could put it in the chat box as well, a 4-7-8 breathing mechanism, which is, and we can do it very briefly and I can show you and then I'll share with you the sort of context behind it. But it's really meant to calm the nervous system and to bring down, you know, that heightened state of anxiety. So it's very simple. It's just you breathe in your nose for 4, hold at the top for 7, and breathe out for 8. So let's just try it together and then we'll keep moving on. But this is one simple breathing exercise that has been proven to, in those proportions or those ratios, to really help to lower your, like bring your nervous system back to a sort of homeostatic state. So we'll breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and out through the mouth for 8. And if you do that 3 or 4 times in a row, you'll start to feel that calming effect. And you can do that anytime throughout the day for 10 seconds or so, especially in the moment when, you know, you don't have enough time to actually do something else, but you need to take a nice deep breath. So before we move on, let's just do one deep breath in and let it out. So we're bringing it back here. So now that we've taken a nice deep breath and we're grounded, let's talk about, what does stress look like? What does it feel like in our bodies? And you'll see we've got lots of things up here. But if we break it down, because here's the thing about stress, right? You all know a lot about the physical body and its response and disease and illness in various ways. Stress can exacerbate a lot of those symptoms. But it's also a very holistic, it has holistic impacts on our bodies and our minds. So cognitively, you can find yourself constantly worrying, bouncing around from thing to thing, not being able to get to sleep. I had that last night, to be quite honest. I laid down and 45 minutes later, I just couldn't get to sleep. It happens sometimes, but it's recognizing, okay, this is what's happening. What are the techniques that I have in my toolbox so that I can manage that in the moment? For some folks, it affects our judgment, memory problems. Anybody having more memory problems than usual? Stress can really make our brains just kind of slow down sometimes and feel like they're in mud, having a hard time concentrating or making decisions. So we've got the cognitive effects, emotional effects. It could be someone is more easily triggered or angered, that irritability and agitation. For others, it can look more like a depression, sort of shutting down, feeling really alone and disconnected, which is not hard in this time, right? The moody irritability and feelings of hopelessness. Again, none of these are, there's no judgment around any of these. These are just things, signs and symptoms as they're showing up in us or loved ones or colleagues. We want to be able to recognize when those things are coming to the forefront. And if there's an aggregation of a number of these things, it's really important for us to stop and check in on, how is the stress that I'm under affecting my functioning on a daily basis? So the physical effects, certainly we can feel more aches and pains in our bodies, chest pain, you could be getting sick more frequently, headaches and body pain, being completely exhausted all the time, and then digestive issues are a big one. Stress has a lot of effects on our digestive systems. And then behaviorally. So these are things that we do, right? We could be overeating. Part of that could be due to the fact that, you know, if your environment has changed, you may have more access to overeating or eating less. I tend to be a person, when I'm really stressed out, I just forget to eat altogether. And that's something I've had to work on, and I keep snacks with me and I set reminders on my phone to make sure I'm eating on a regular basis. This could also be, you know, you're not usually someone who procrastinates, but when you're really stressed out, neglecting responsibilities. It could be your sleep patterns. restlessness, and then also those behaviors that can become excessive or we can become dependent on, where maybe you were having a glass of wine in the evening to kind of decompress, and now you find that the second you're done with work, you're having 2 or 3 glasses of wine. It's just paying attention to what those changes are and how they're affecting our functionality. So we see a very holistic impact of stress on our lives in all of these different areas. And so it's paying attention, saying, where do I see some signs and symptoms either in myself or someone else? And what do I want to do about that? Do I want to change that? Will it make me feel better? And that's where we come to the self-care assessment that was sent out to you before this session, but I'm also going to share it on the screen. Yeah, Lisa.
I was going to say, not everybody probably got the assessment because we had some folks that are with us today that registered after it went out last night.
No problem. I've got it right here. I will put it up on the screen. And so in the interest of time, we won't have time to have you fill it all out, but you will receive this via email. And we would highly encourage you just to take some time to go through. It's a very simple rating scale here, and there are 4 different categories. So physical self-care. You know, am I doing these things frequently? Am I never eating regularly? I like grab a granola bar in the morning and then I don't eat all day, and then I come home at night and scrounge for whatever I can eat. In that case, I would put, you know, I'm rarely eating regularly, a 4. So it's just going through some of these various components of physical self-care and being really honest with, where am I with these? Am I sleeping enough? Am I taking time away from others or taking time away from screens and devices? Psychological self-care. So the fact that you are here today making some time for self-reflection is crucial. And these, clearly this is not completely comprehensive. There may be many other things that you would write in for your psychological self-care that either you're doing or you would like to be doing that have worked for you in the past. And that's what this other category is. So we've looked at physical, psychological, emotional self-care. So it's rating on, you know, how connected are you to other folks right now? Are you taking time to emotionally take care of yourself? Do you have folks that you can talk to where you express your emotions and are able to feel non-judged in expressing your emotions? And then spiritual self-care. So again, this idea of reflection, being open to inspiration, finding ways to remember your purpose and the meaning that you've gotten not only from your professional life, but from your personal life as well. So we will share this with you so that you can do it in full. But my question to you would be, in looking at these 4 categories, spiritual self-care, emotional, psychological, and physical, would be just based on those categories, what for you is the one that stands out the most, where you say, ooh, that's the area where I'd want to focus? And you can type that into the chat box if you would, if you feel comfortable, and if not, that's okay too. Bring us back to the, there we go.
The other thing to note is that the self-care assessment is also in the Staying in Balance toolkit, so that's another source of it. We're going to send it to you separately, but it's another way of distributing it if you ever wanted to give it to folks on your team or other people in your life as well. So no comments yet in the chat box.
And after doing the assessment, this may be easier, right? It would be easier to say, well, this is the area that needs the most attention for me. But that's part of the work. It's part of the work of figuring out what is one small step you can take in that area that you feel like is going to change things for you. I mean, Allison said she went on a walk and a bike ride and yoga this morning. That's amazing. You're physically, it sounds like you're really getting the movement in. For me, that's an area that I'd like to focus more on. I would love to tomorrow morning do a walk and some yoga. So that would be my focus right now if I were to choose one of the areas.
And Evelyn noted that spiritual is her first.
Thank you, Evelyn. And along with the assessment that we send, there's an action plan. So you'll do the assessment, and then you'll think about what are things that realistically I can do that are going to push me in that area to make sure that I'm feeling really nurtured and cared for. Would anybody else like to share the area that stood out?
Better sleep hygiene. I think that's a big one for a lot of us.
I was going to say, I don't think you're alone in that one.
Ooh.
So foundationally, self-care is not selfish or self-indulgent, right? Regardless of what we think. And I know self-care has become a buzzword. It's like, oh, everybody just take care of yourself and go get some yoga pants and join a gym or whatever. Those things are good, but it's also a daily habitual practice that it's not self-indulgent. We cannot nurture others from a dry well. We have to take care of our own needs first, and then and only then can we give from our surplus or our abundance. So only when we're feeling filled up and taken care of can we actually continue to do the work of helping other folks, right? And so it's not just a nice, warm, fuzzy extra thing we're talking about. We're really talking about sustainability and the ability to give to other people who really, they need to be filled up so much that if you don't have anything to give, you're going to be completely depleted. So some tips for managing stress. And this is just a brief list here, but we would love to hear from you. What are some more tips that you have? Things that you're doing on a regular basis or that you've done before in your life that really worked for you to cope in times that are really high stress? And I won't read all of these off because I know you all can read them and they're very colorful.
So one thing I put in the chat box is trying to keep a sense of humor. Sometimes even in the midst of it, if I can still find something amusing about the situation or just anything, it helps.
Great. I've got to say the managing your environment, cleaning up and beautifying your workspace for me is incredibly therapeutic. I do feel like my external space reflects my internal state. And if I'm feeling internally chaotic, it helps me to clean up and organize things so I feel like, okay, at least around me there's some sense of calm in the chaos.
Xiomara noted that she likes reading a book or watching a comedy show as a way of managing stress.
Nice.
Yep, getting into some other story or some other
little escape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been binge watching a bit, which may not be the most healthy, but it does help me to decompress. When I find a good show and I'm able to binge watch, feels good. I think it's also the setting boundaries right now, especially, and saying no when necessary or possible. Especially for those folks who may be caring for children, caring for a parent, caring for animals even, like figuring out when you can say, okay, I've done enough either for my work right now, I've done enough, I'm not able to do that project with you right now. Kid, I'm gonna need a little more time and we're gonna need to do it another time, so that we don't enter into that sort of superhero mode of I can do everything, all the things, all the time. It is really important that we allow ourselves to set those boundaries.
So some other folks responded. Tuhina noted she gets into old hobbies that she doesn't do as much anymore, and it reminds her why she did it before so she can reconnect. Indu noted that she tries to do something fun and joyful if possible. And Evelyn noted getting outside and getting fresh air.
Yes. Yes. All of these things. So thank you so much for sharing. Well, Kermit says it's time to stretch. We're going to do a very brief stretch, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. So we'll just do this in our chairs, okay? Actually, if you want to stand up, stand up. Maybe I'll stand up, but you can do it in your chair if you'd like. I'm connected to these headphones, so we'll see how this works. So if you're sitting in your chair, you can just do a modified version. So just do a nice Nice big stretch here. Oh, this feels good. All right. And take your left hand here and place it on your right wrist. Yeah. Stretch all the way up and take a nice deep breath and stretch it over to the side. Oh, that feels good. Okay. Bring it back up. Now switch right hand over left wrist. Lift up. Take a deep breath in. Stretch it over. Okay. Back up. Now let's bring it down. Really quick spinal twist. So if you're sitting in your chair, you can just hold on to the back of it. If you're standing up, don't go too hard. We don't want anybody pulling anything. But spinal twists really do help to innervate and get all of the blood and the oxygen flowing back up to your brain. So if you're starting to feel foggy or that sort of muddled thinking, you might want to stand up, do a little spinal twist to get things moving again. So, you know, when Kermit says stretch, you stretch. So we did a little stretch.
You don't say no to a Muppet.
Never. It's very dangerous. All right.
So why are we talking about this so much? Why is this so important? I think you've heard a lot about it already, but what is so interesting about human bodies and brains is that they are quite plastic in many ways. And we can become attuned to living with chronic stress. And if we're not tuning back into it, what we feel like our stressors are, what our physiological stress response is, we just get used to having that stress response be on all the time, and we become habituated to it. And the longer it stays on without any mitigation, it just is that much harder and takes more effort to turn off the stress response. It's not that it can't be done, but it's a lot more effortful. And so the idea here is that regular amounts of self-care actually can be preventive in terms of preventing long-term effects of stress. We can go to the next slide. So, you know, some of the things that happen when people are experiencing stress, specifically tied to their workplace or anywhere really, is that, you know, it is harder to show up. It's not just harder to show up on time and be fully present. You know, it's hard to stay connected to the work and your own role. And so there, even if your body is there, it's possible that you're not. As Christina mentioned, certainly our experience of physical discomfort can increase when we're struggling with stress in general, and certainly with that associated with our work setting. We might experience more workplace conflicts. You know, it may feel harder to get along with folks that we're working with. Even if it doesn't outwardly show, we may feel a lot more annoyance, irritation, frustration, difficulty seeing other people's point of view. We might have less patience with demands, particularly that of the people we're taking care of, our patients, as well as our colleagues. And we may feel less able to problem solve. We may not be as creative in our solution making as we normally are and want to be. It's something to pay attention to. And the other piece of this is that when we are not tuning in to our stress, our stressors, our response, and regularly putting in some time to rejuvenate ourselves, we are on potentially the road to burnout. We know that burnout is a very real phenomenon in many workplaces. We know that burnout in healthcare is really a significant phenomenon. It happens frequently. And the reality is, you know, you didn't start out in this field so that you could burn out. That wasn't the goal. And the world certainly needs healthy and happy folks in healthcare. So part of what we're wanting to underscore is that managing your stress response on a regular basis and plugging into those things that replenish your well can be a preventive for burnout, which is a state of true emotional and physical exhaustion that is caused by excessive and prolonged stress that is unmitigated. And folks who experience this often feel really hopeless, cynical, resentful in their workspaces, and that's just not a sustainable place to operate from. Next slide. So this is just a visual of some of the differences between feeling stress as it relates to our work setting versus burnout. And so there's a little bit of a compare and contrast. I'm not going to read that all to you, but I did want to call your attention to a link that we have. And again, everyone will get these slides, so you'll have access to it. There is a website, mindtools.com, that has a burnout self-test. And it, just like the self-care action plan, the self-assessment and action plan that you saw earlier, this is another way just to check in on yourself. You know, are you feeling some things that are associated with burnout? If the answer is yes, it may not mean that you are truly burnt out. It may mean, though, that there is an opportunity for you to identify places where some more self-care and some more mindful attention to your own well-being can be helpful. So I do hope folks access that. And again, if you are part of a team or you supervise other folks, these may be things also that you can pass on to your colleagues because it may be useful to them as well. Move to the next slide. So again, some signals, even outside of the assessment, that burnout may be something that is coming down the pike. If you feel like every day at work is a bad day, we all have them. We sometimes have stretches of them. I think in healthcare, there's been a lot of stressful days for quite a while. If you feel like caring about your work life, your professional life seems like a total waste of energy, gosh, why am I putting so much effort into this? It doesn't matter. If you feel exhausted all the time, even if you're sleeping, if you're feeling that sense of crushing fatigue and it's hard to mitigate, that may be a signal that burnout may be creeping up. If you find that the majority of your workday is spent on doing tasks that you either find boring and hard to engage with or overwhelming, either for time reasons or because it's taxing your usual skill set, if that's the majority of one's work experience, that's going to be tough, and that may increase the likelihood of burnout. If you feel like nothing you do makes a difference to anyone, that the work feels futile, that isn't a good feeling, and that is something that over time is going to weigh on people. And certainly if you feel like nothing you do is appreciated when you work very hard, and especially in the healthcare arena, you're dealing with folks who are struggling mightily with really difficult things, and they may not always take the time to thank you or to note the work that all of you do to support them. If it feels like that never happens from anyone, that's going to wear on folks over time too. So these are some things to watch out for. Everybody has a bad day or a bad stretch of days now and then. Everybody feels tired sometimes. Everybody feels frustrated at work some of the time. So some of the time is not really an issue. It's really if it's all of the time and it seems really difficult, if not impossible, to shift those feelings. That's the signal. Next. So what's the prevention here? What is the take home? The take home really is that investing in your emotional health and well-being is critical. And we have a number of things here. One is a quote that I think is helpful. This is really about building resilience. And resilience is the ability to recover from setbacks, adapt well to change, and keep going or choose to give up in the face of adversity. The whole idea of resilience is that when we go through difficult things, we can emerge stronger, wiser, and more able. That's ideally what happens. In order to build your resilience, you know, it used to be thought resilience was something folks had or they didn't have. It too is plastic. We can bolster and build and strengthen our resilience. And when we don't put in that investment, it can get chipped away. So we know that folks who feel a good sense of emotional health and well-being, their resilience tends to be increased. Their physical well-being tends to be better. Their ability to bounce back from chronic stress also tends to be better. Resilience can help us to stay focused, flexible, which we so often need in workspaces, particularly when we're caring for others, and positive in difficult times as well as the good times. So it reminds me of that slide we saw earlier, which is that when we think about peace, it's not about nothing going on, it's about how we are in the midst of all of that going on. And building our resilience helps us to stay steady in that chaotic mix. And all of this adds up to increased productivity, better ability to find enjoyment in our work, even when it's tough, or even alongside the toughness, enhanced relationships with our patients, our colleagues, other staff that we work with, and connection to our sense of purpose. Why do we do what we do? What do we want to achieve? And all of that is easier to connect with and maintain when we're making those investments in ourselves. Next slide.
If I may, I'd love to, and not to put you on the spot, Indu, but before when you were speaking about how you you know, there's stressors, certainly, and you managed to, even in your voice tone, you sounded very grounded, and that you're here to learn and get ideas, but that you feel like you've got a really firm grounding. I'm interested to know if you'd like to share with us, what are some of the things that you do? Because it sounds like you are incredibly resilient, and I'm sure many of you who are in this meeting are as well. So what are some of those things that you do to build your resilience and remain so strong in the midst of all of the stress? And that's a question for anyone.
Not seeing anything yet.
Maybe I can tell you what I feel from the physician standpoint of view. No, I shouldn't say that. Maybe as a person from personal point of view. One has to understand you have only so many things under control. Certain things are not under your control. So you be aware of what possibly you can do in a given situation and have sufficient knowledge about it. Like, for example, with current coronavirus or COVID, so many things are coming out and so many things yet we have to learn, especially whether it's management or treatment, or including like immediate versus, prevention, talking about vaccine. So many things we are still learning. So at this moment, can we sit and freak out like, oh, what can we do? Oh my God, I can't do this. I can't go here, or I can't even interact with somebody. What happens if I touch? People go overboard by touching something or even standing next to somebody. They have to understand, okay, what are the problems? Okay, can I get something by standing next to somebody, or is it okay if I just wash hands after touching something? Okay, and in terms of precautions, they have to be careful all the time. This is just an example. So similarly, like based on the situation and scenario and the topic, they have to learn, okay, here is what it is. Okay, what I can do, what I cannot do, or things are to control or not to control, I guess, depending on how you put it. So that they have to understand to begin with, and then they can take steps accordingly, I feel.
Thank you so much. I know I put you on the spot, but that idea of what's within our locus of control and what is not, and not really trying to not allow all of those things that we cannot control to be the overwhelming burdens and stresses that we continually feel. I love that. Thank you.
It's really key.
Would anyone else like to share? Evelyn.
Those are great qualities that the doctor just shared, but I also think that it depends on what you keep thinking about.
Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you very well. You're sort of going in and out.
No, it's still pretty difficult, unfortunately.
All right, I'll type it in.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? All right.
Yes.
So what I'm going to say is that I find that not dwelling on whatever the problem or whatever it is has helped me a lot. And instead of thinking of, what cannot be, think about what could be. The positive end of what you're dwelling on, what you're thinking about. Just renewing your mind, something that, there is hope, that things will, it always works out, those kind of things. To help me keep in control as opposed to like being anxious or anything, which I don't really, thank God I don't suffer from that, but there are people that do because of what they're thinking. Or you need to change the channel, the brain, so that they're not completely to thinking about whatever is bothering them. If you understand.
Yeah. One last tip, I know that for me, sometimes reframing can be really helpful in terms of managing. Sometimes I think, and maybe you do too in the work setting, oh my God, can I get this done? Is this possible? I just add the word how. How can I get it done? How is this possible? And it puts me into problem solving mode instead of panic mode. So sometimes even simple reframing the worry can ratchet down the stress and allow us a window into the problem solving place.
So thank you, everyone. We are going to move to resources because another, all of those things are really important in thinking about mindfulness and what we can control and staying in the moment and not thinking about, oh, well, what's going to happen in the future and I just can't predict it, because we can't. But another thing that can really help is having resources at your fingertips, having resources to share with others, being able to see, these are some really wonderful tip sheets or articles that can may be helpful for you and other colleagues that you work with. Also more immediate sort of resources for mindfulness and meditation practices. Again, that doesn't have to be the answer for everyone, but if you want to try it out or add to your current list of resources, these are all free resources online. Vibrant, our organization, has a wonderful website that is part of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, is it not, Lisa? The Safe Space website?
Yep, it is.
So it's really lovely. It's got a lot of interactive activities that you can do and a lot of great resources. So I would say, check some of these things out. There's no cost. And Vibrant also oversees, and Lisa, I can turn this over to you, but NYC Well, you could tell a little bit more about that in case folks don't know about this resource.
So NYC Well is New York City's toll-free, confidential 24/7 service that anybody can use to speak with a counselor. It is confidential. It can even be anonymous. There are counselors available any time of the day or night. And so if you're feeling really overwhelmed, or you know someone who is, it may not be that you are, but someone in your family, a colleague, a friend, maybe patients even feel like they need someone to talk to, this is a terrific resource. So when people call to connect to NYC Well, they can connect with a counselor who can not only just listen and assess and help with problem solving, but if folks do want to connect to supports, including formal mental health supports, that connection can be made. What's nice too about NYC Well is that there are 3 ways to connect with a counselor. Certainly anybody can call the number there that is listed, 1-888-NYC Well. There's also a texting option. So if somebody texts the word well to that number, 65173, they can actually communicate with a counselor via text. And maybe for those of us on the webinar, that may not be where we would go with it, but certainly young people may find this attractive. So if you know some young people and you want to give this information, do highlight the text portion. There is also an opportunity to connect with counselors using a chat function. So if you were to Google NYC Well and get the website and go to it, there's a box where you can just start chatting with a counselor. So the goal is to try to make the communication as accessible to everyone as possible in the modality that they most want to connect in. So calling, texting, and chatting. There is also a resource that we will distribute for health and hospitals that they have started at health and hospitals, a helpline that is available Monday through Friday, certain key hours, and we're going to distribute that number as well. And this is strictly for health and hospitals folks, so this is not available to the public, but it's for anyone who is feeling fatigued or stressed, or that they might be on the road to burnout and that they really need someone to talk to reduce their stress level. That helpline is available, and we will make sure that you get that information along with all of the other links and pieces of info as well.
So before we...
Oh, go ahead, Christina.
Before we wrap up, we're going to turn it back over to Tuhina. But before we wrap up, I would love to hear from folks in the chat box or verbally, just one thing that you're taking away from today, whether it's something that you plan to put into practice or something you feel like you learned, something you heard that sort of gave you a light bulb moment or resonated with you, I'd love to, as we wrap up, just hear what you're taking away from today. And I can see.
So Evelyn is saying self-care is vital, but that's a takeaway.
Great.
And I would agree with that.
I liked learning that 4-7-8 breathing. I've not heard of that before. That's a really easy thing to do, even on the subway.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Any other takeaways from folks? Okay. So hopefully, you know, with the self-care action plan and assessment, you know, that may be an opportunity to have a takeaway that there is something that you can do more of or continue to do or add to your self-care repertoire. We're hoping that that happens for everyone. Even if you are feeling like you're doing really great self-care, there may be an opportunity to expand what you do. And we just want to thank you all for being here and investing in yourselves and for the work that you all do every day for New Yorkers.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And Tuhina, I don't know if you want to remind folks of this information.
Yes, I will. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Oops, falling off my chair. And just a reminder that you can sign in for attendance at any of these sign-in methods for EEDS. You can text 2828-295-1144 and put in the code 10LAYS. If you need this for your CMEs, this is how you will get them. You need to sign in before tomorrow at 11:30. So we will be sending you the slides and any of all the resources later, hopefully today or tomorrow. And then this presentation will be archived in our website, pagny.org under Health and Research Foundation events. So you can refer other people to it. You can revisit it. We are really excited to share all this information with you. So thank you for being there today. One more slide, I think. I think next slide. Is there another slide?
Yep, there's one more.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to let everybody know that this was brought to you by the Pagny Health and Research Foundation and from support from people like you and others that we've been able to do this programming, particularly for COVID-19 and the Relief Fund. So I wanted to thank you all for your participation and for all the support you give us. So on that note, I'll say goodbye unless anybody has other comments.
No, thank you all so much for your time today. Thank you for the work that you do. We truly appreciate it and hope that you feel like you've taken something away from this and it was worth your time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very well presented.
Thank you. Thank you, Evelyn.